Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Badgerland Birding Podcast, bringing you birding news and stories from the Badger State and beyond. We've had a couple weeks off, so we're excited to be back. And I'm also excited to say that this podcast episode is sponsored by our friends over at Brome. They have a lot of cool squirrel busting products, such as squirrel proof bird feeders, which we've tried in the past. And I'm actually testing the squirrel proof suet feeder at the moment, which is interesting. It's the first squirrel proof suet feeder I've ever seen. So it's been a cool test. But thanks so much to Brome for sponsoring the video. How's it going, Ray?
How does that suet feeder work?
It's kind of like it's very bulky looking. So like, the normal suet feeder is kind of like a cage. This one is like a cage within another cage. And basically if something too heavy goes on it, it covers the suet. So only a small part of the suet
Okay.
is available for birds to feed on. But then if something too heavy goes there, it closes it up. So that's kind of the idea behind it.
Think about what these squirrels think when there's all this food out there, but it's all squirrel proofed. So they're just, oh, easy money. And then they jump on it and I can't get it now.
Yeah, like
Well, just very
I'm not
confused.
going to Joe's yard anymore. It's got all these medieval contraptions and things going on that
They're gonna have to
prevent
just
me
find a
from
walnut tree, I guess.
from getting any food.
Yeah, that's true. But we are excited today to talk about a little bit of what we've been up to lately, and then also go over kind of our first day in Colorado. We just released the video this week, and it was quite the experience. We released a couple videos already from Colorado, but now we're kind of going on a day by day, and that first day was pretty cool.
It was, yeah. Do you want to start with the little Gaul stuff first?
Well, you blew it. Now there's no mystery.
It wasn't a mystery.
It was
People
supposed to be a
could,
mystery. I was going to drop hints along the way,
I don't
breadcrumbs to
believe that.
people. They were going to be locked in on this podcast listening to clues about what bird we saw recently, but now they know. Smallest gull species in the world, the little gull.
Yeah, I think we should start there because that was a birding trip we took pretty recently. And summer's tough to kind of convince yourself to get out and go see things. But then I feel like once you're out, like, oh, this is fun. So we went to Two Rivers, Wisconsin, pretty early in the morning with her friend Sammy.
Which is north of Sheboygan, Manitowoc.
Yeah, and slightly north of Manitowoc. But Sammy needed it for a lifer, and it is the smallest gull in the world. And so we were able to track down a really large flock of Bonaparte's gulls, and then in there we were able to find two little gulls. There was apparently an adult around, but we didn't see that one. But it's really tough because people would walk on the beach. They're kind of just, I feel like they knew we were there looking at the birds, but they just walked on the beach anyways, which is frustrating. But the stuff was really shuffling around, which made it difficult.
Yeah, and we would track the flock down. Originally, there was actually two different flocks. There was one that happened to be where we parked, so we were able to scan that right away. And then there was one farther down, and pretty much immediately in that first flock, we were actually able to pick out two little gulls in transitional slash non-breeding plumage, not the adult breeding plumage with the dark head. But they were still very cool looking. You could see how dainty they were compared to the nearby Bonaparte skulls. And they're one of those birds similar to a cackling goose or Ross's goose, where it's similar looking to other species that are around. But then when you actually get the size comparison side by side, you realize how much smaller it really is. And they were very, very small, even compared to the reasonably small Bonaparte skulls.
Yeah, we had a couple people comment that their legs were really thin, and that's not something I noticed till I looked at the picture. But their legs look like little toothpicks, like they barely have any leg there. It reminded me of Sharpshin versus Cooper's Hawk ID thing. But yeah, they just look tiny, almost like a Lee Stern in size.
I was gonna say they were very tern-like in size in general, and then mixed in with that flock were some other good things too. So we got a Franklin's gull, which was really nice looking. We had obviously herring and ringbill gulls. There was a Caspian tern, common tern. So a nice flock of gulls, and gulls along the lakeshore of Lake Michigan are a real treat for us in Wisconsin that we probably take for granted the gull diversity that we get along the lake here compared to other states that are more landlocked.
Yeah, definitely. I'm gonna pull up a picture of the little gull here so that you can see what I'm talking about if you're a person watching and not listening. Look at these. Look at those tiny legs.
Yeah, it looks like it's on little pins.
Yeah, isn't that crazy? Because Bonaparte's gulls are pretty small, but even that looks massive compared to the little gulls' tiny little legs and feet.
It is funny too because those Bonaparte gulls looked dwarfed compared to the ringbill gulls, and then if there was a herring gull in the mix, You just get that size comparison between the herring gull and a nearby little gull, and it's pretty funny.
Yeah, if they could all just stand in a line, that would be great instead of being
Yeah,
in a
that'd be
big
great.
gull pile.
It's pretty easy when you can just get up close with these birds and analyze them and measure them for size comparison, look at the
That's how they
small
fool
families.
you. It's like look in the field guide and everything's separated, and then you get out there and it's all just mashed together. And they're hiding behind each other and flying away and coming back and
There have been a
doing
lot
all
of times,
kinds of
especially with
stuff.
shorebirds, when I'll look up all the shorebird details and think that I've got it and feeling confident in myself, self, and then you get out in the field and there's heat shimmer and they're distant and you're at a loss and you're just thinking that you wasted all your time doing shorebird research. I do have to mention, Sammy was very low key about getting his lifer.
He
A
was,
lot
yeah.
of times people are really pumped about it, and he just thought it was business as usual. We were trying to prod him for a bigger reaction, and he was just like, "Yeah, we got it."
I think
Woo!
internally he was, pumped about
He
it.
was hyped up about it,
Maybe it
and
just took a few days. Like he woke up, was like, I saw a little girl.
I hope
It's
it's
a delayed
delayed.
reaction.
I hope he's
Yeah.
at work and suddenly just fist pumps, and people are like, What's up?" And he goes, "I saw a little gull the other day, and it was wicked."
Yeah, that what you're saying about shorebirds though, like we've been doing some more short form content, like doing some skit type stuff. That'd be a good one, like shorebird expectation versus reality, where you're like looking in the field guide, you're like, oh, this will be great. And then you're out and it's like, you know, a tiny speck in the distance and you're getting bit by mosquitoes and it's, wood ticks and tall grass and blobs and all that stuff.
Yeah. And then we continued to do a little bit of birding actually after we saw the little gulls because we wanted to see if we could find the adult. And so we tried to check out some of the other flocks, but as you mentioned, they just kept moving around. Found an area where there was a lot of pelicans, American white pelicans, and then a little group of killdeer with the parents, and then what appeared to be the young of the year. And the killdeer are precocial when they're babies, so they'll just get up and go pretty much right away and be tended by the parents on the run versus other species that are relegated to the nest for a longer time. And you actually found a fledgling robin the other day, which was a interesting experience for you.
Yeah, it was. It was by this like retirement home kind of deal. And it was actually right by the sidewalk, and some kids found it. Well, I didn't know what they were looking at. They were on bikes and they had gotten off and they were looking kind of like poking at something. So I was like, well, I'll go see what's going on. And then I was like, oh, what is it? They're like, oh, it's a zombie bird. Like, oh, really? So I came over and it was just like a little young robin that was like totally freaked out. Looked like it was right on the border of if it should have actually been out of the nest. I don't know if it got knocked out or if they're just that little when they actually are ready to go. But it had a lot of its flight feathers, still like a couple pin feathers in there. But it was fairly developed. So I moved it into like away from the sidewalk and I was just kind of checking up on it for a few days. And I ended up moving it in the shade, and the parents were coming to feed it. So that, like, at that point, it's like, okay, it's not in immediate danger. They're taking care of it. So that's kind of your best case scenario. But I was worried about it through the night because you think if a coyote comes, it doesn't really have defense. It was just staying in the exact same spot. But it made it through the night. There was a storm, and then eventually it started hopping. It moved to a better spot with its parents, kind of on the edge of the forest area, and I think it's doing all right as far as I can tell. But you always see them, and you're like, "There's no way they're going to survive," but somehow they do. Well,
It's
some of them do.
amazing with all the perils out there from feral cats to natural predators.
Cars,
Yeah, I
yeah.
mean, all sorts of stuff can get them. Reptiles like
Well, if
snakes
you
can
if
get
you
them.
think about that, like you're in a safe nest, and then all of a sudden one day you're in an area where there's people, there's giant machines that you don't know that could run you over. There's hawks, there's coyotes. Like they got to learn a lot of stuff to just not die. Either their instincts must be really good, or they must learn really quick, or just a lot of them don't make. I'm sure a lot of them don't make it, but the fact that some of them do is kind of amazing.
Yeah, that's true. And it's always a conundrum when you find one because you don't know whether you should take it somewhere. You don't know if it's in any actual danger or if it's just part of the process of being a fledgling because those fledglings do look very young still sometimes when they're out of the nest. And so a lot of people find fledglings and think that the parents have abandoned it or it got knocked out the nest or something happened and they'll take it in when in reality the parents were nearby waiting to feed it. And so it's usually a good idea to take a look and see if there's any birds in the area that seem to be tending to that particular bird. And a lot of times you'll hear them chirping to it or chirping at you, trying to get you away, doing a little alarm chirps. So there's kind of a workflow you can actually follow on what to do if you find a baby bird, but it is always a little unsettling because you want to help, but you don't know what the exact right thing to do is.
Yeah, and there's some stat about a bunch of baby birds get kidnapped, as they say, where they're actually at the age where they should be out of the nest, but people just kind of freak out and they're like, oh, it shouldn't be out yet. And then they'll take it to a rehab center when really the best case for them is if the parents are there taking care of them. They know much better than we do. So kind of if it's not an immediate danger and the parents are there tending to it, it's got its eyes open, it's at the size where it should be out. Best thing to do normally is to just let it be, and that's kind of the best case scenario with it. But it was nice to have kind of a happy ending with it and be like, okay, it can hop, its parents are there, it's in a better place than it was. So, always good to have a win like that.
So that's been the big things we've been doing lately. But before any of that happened, we went on a trip out to Colorado we actually went mostly first for the Coldplay concert. And then serendipity would have it that we actually got in contact with someone who we are now good friends with after spending a week there, who is starting his own guiding company in Colorado and wanted us to come out there and see what it was like and film some stuff. So we got the opportunity to be guided around by someone that knows the area really well. And it was a very exciting week. And I don't know how much I want to give away about the rest of the week, but we posted the first day. We posted our trip to Pawnee Grasslands and we posted our trip to Rocky Mountain National Park. So Derek, you can decide where you want to lead off with what experiences you liked the most out of those three things.
Sure. I mean, it was all cool, but first of all, got to give a shout out to Jeremiah Seropoulos, our guide. He's based around the Hayden, Colorado area, which isn't a place you would necessarily start off. I feel like most people would start in Denver, Boulder, but
Somebody commented that actually. They said
yeah, we
most
were out
people would have
in
started in Denver.
we were out in the southwest part of Colorado.
I think it was the
It
Northwest actually.
Oh yeah, yeah, you're right. The northwest part. And it was cool because it was not that big of a town. So like the place we were staying, you would wake up and there's just mountains there and pronghorn and western meadowlarks singing and all that kind of stuff. So it was cool to kind of start out in the more natural area as opposed to more of a city urbanized touristy place. And then first day we'll get to in a little bit, but Pawnee National Grasslands, we went with our friend Ben Sampson and saw a lot of the unique grassland species like mountain plover, which has been on my list to see for a while, thick-billed longspur, chestnut-collared longspur. I'm glad we got to have a nice grassland experience. And it might seem really boring. It's like, oh, it's a bunch of fields, but it's amazing what kind of stuff lives in there. And then Rocky Mountain National Park was awesome. A little bit touristy, but it's like touristy in a showcasing the natural wildlife way. We saw a moose there. We had the chance to see ptarmigan. We didn't, but we had a chance to see it. Views were spectacular. We had to fly through Clark's Nutcracker, ton of American pipits up there, which I didn't expect that they had taken over Rocky Mountain National Park, which is funny. Pikas, so much to go through there. What were your thoughts on Pawnee and Rocky Mountain before we get into our first full day?
Well, what was interesting about Pawnee is that, as you said, it's a grassland, but that doesn't mean that the habitat is the same throughout. So it'd have different plants that different types of birds preferred over others. So you would have an area, and the first area we got to, well, everywhere had a lot of lark buntings there. I don't remember a habitat that didn't have lark buntings, which was actually a lifer for you, basically. You got kind of
I
gnarly
had
looks.
bad views at like a non-breeding slash immature bird. Yeah, it was like a really distant on a line kind of deal. So
In
yeah, it
South
felt like a
Texas, I think,
lifer.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was all intents and purposes of viewing lifer, and they were a pretty dapper looking bird with a white wing bar and then the all black on the males. And so our first spot of Pawnee had a lot of lark buntings, but then it also had thick-billed longspurs, which are a really unique looking longspur in my opinion because most of the longspur species are more dark in color and these are lighter and they have that dark spot on the chest, but other than that, back is brown, head is lighter, rest of the underside is lighter. So they're really unique. But then you'd have them in kind of the shorter grass. Then as you got into the longer types of grass, you had the chestnut collared longspurs, which are really beautiful in their own way as well. And then in the really, really short grass near the prairie dog towns, you would have the mountain plovers, which we actually got pretty much horrendous looks at. But that was okay because it was still viewable. We could still tell they were mountain plovers. And then there were also buttes there that had some different types of birds on them. So Pawnee, if you didn't pay attention to it, you would think it was all the same stuff and be bored with it. If you did pay attention to the changes in habitat and were interested in the birds there, you were rewarded with a lot of different diversity and species. Oh, and the nighthawks were cool. You really like the nighthawks we saw there.
Yeah, we found one perched up on a wooden railing, and then there were four that really liked this metal railing structure, and they all had slightly different poses. So it was cool to see kind of how they perched slightly differently from each other.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So Pawnee, cool. What about Rocky Mountain?
Rocky Mountain at first felt really difficult to bird because we started in the lower elevation, and anyone listening who wants to go there, they have specific hours where you need to book ahead of time, or else I don't think you get let in at all, or you
So
might
it's
get
like
let in.
it's between a certain time. I think if it's really early you can get in or later in the day, but if you want to go in like midday, right now they have like a reservation system up. So
Mhm.
definitely do a little research if you're planning on going.
Yeah, so just be aware of that because it would be a bummer to go all the way up there and then plan on getting in at a certain time and then find out that there's no more spots available to get in and then basically be turned away and have to do something else. But lower elevation was kind of tricky. We went obviously in June, and so everything was pretty leafy. Everything was hard to spot. Stuff was not necessarily out calling as much because it was during the breeding season. But in the lower elevation spots, we did see some cool stuff. We got Audubon's yellow-rumped warbler, Wilson's warblers were down there, violet green swallows, a lot of that kind of common stuff in that part of the state. And then as you climbed up, the landscape drastically changed. So where you started more flat with the mountains in the distance, you get up into the mountains. And that's where we saw some of the different species. We saw a little bit higher a Canada jay, which was cool, some pine siskins, and then you get up to the top of the mountains, which makes you feel like you're on an expedition in Nepal or something, because there is Arctic tundra up there. Or I don't know if they call it Arctic tundra, but it looks like Arctic tundra. Do you
It's
know what I'm talking about?
like the ptarmigan looking habitat, where it's
Right,
just
it's
like
something
sparse with just
tundra.
some rocks and
Might be like
might
high
be
elevation
alpine
tundra.
tundra.
Yeah, it's alpine tundra. Yeah, alpine tundra, which is pretty cool because it does feel kind of like you're in the Arctic, but you're up on the top of a mountain. And as you mentioned, the pipits were up there, ravens were up there, mountain bluebirds, but not a ton else. So
Yeah.
the
Raven,
diversity,
Raven.
I said raven.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Raven
so
again.
raven again. Horned larks too. You think of horned larks as more of a grassy type bird. We always see them along roadsides where we live, so seeing them up in the mountains was really interesting.
Yeah, there is a famous ptarmigan switchback, is what they call it. So the switchback is where the road goes one way and then it like hairpins back the other direction. There's a pull off there, and that's apparently the place where people see ptarmigan. But it seems difficult. It's like sometimes there are ptarmigan there. And I feel like probably the earlier you get there, the better, but I don't have a ton of info about it. But there was a rock that I saw way up there because I was looking really hard for ptarmigan because I was like, this is probably our one chance here to find it on the trip. And there was a rock that looked so much like a ptarmigan. And I took a bunch of pictures of it, and it looked like maybe part of it had shifted. And we probably spent like 15 minutes analyzing this, what I presume to be just a ptarmigan looking rock, to see if maybe it was one of them. And I don't think it was, but it was pretty convincing. But that part felt really exciting because I was like, we could find brown-capped rosy finch, which we needed for lifer, and ptarmigan. So just when you put yourself into the position of we can find birds that we need to see, it gives that extra excitement of like we're in the element. Like we have a shot now. Once you go down, you're like, there's no ptarmigan here. But once you're in that element, you get pumped to have the possibility of seeing that stuff. And we were on, unfortunately, a little bit of a time crunch because we were actually going to the Coldplay concert that night. So we had to get to where we were staying and then drive into
Yeah.
Denver. Traffic was rough.
What's it? Was it Boulder?
No, it was near Boulder where we were
Boulder
staying.
adjacent.
Yeah, in that area, but we were on kind of a time crunch. So as cool as it was, we were trying to soak it all in without trying to feel rushed, but we were kind of rushed to get through and see everything we needed to see and then also make it to the concert. So that was kind of a hectic day, but it was really, really fun. And driving into Denver with the traffic was kind of brutal, which
Yeah,
I
I
probably
would
should have
have
expected that.
I would have spent more time at Rocky Mountain National Park if
Definitely.
we could have. I mean, if we weren't starting farther away too and sleep deprived already, I would have been like, let's just get there as quick as possible in the morning and try to get up to the top basically before anyone else and see if we can find ptarmigans because a lot of those things are like where you have to get there early and be the first person. I don't know if they're like that. They might also just be
It
randomly
feels
out and
like
about.
it.
Yeah, it feels like it because I don't think a lot of people have those sightings. Sometimes eBird in that way can be a little deceiving because you see sightings, but then you don't take into the fact that there's probably thousands of people passing through there on a daily basis. So you'll see, oh, there's a lot of sightings in this area, but it might be one sighting every 2 weeks. But there's still a cluster of them because so many people are coming through. That's the same thing actually with South Texas in my experience too, is we would look and we'd see when the gray colored Bacard was there, tons of sightings of the gray colored Bacard, but then you'd realize there was like one person per day seeing it. So you only had a very tiny window to see it, and only very few people sometimes were the ones seeing it, but it was still reported daily. So it was kind of overstating like how easy it would be to see. And I felt like that was the same thing with the ptarmigan. But then what was funny is everybody else that we met after that kept telling us there's easier places to get them, but then those places were all different. So it was, oh no, there's this place you just go up there and you hike in 2 hours and you'll get them there. Or, oh no, there's a different mountain where you can drive up to the top and you can get them there. And there's a mountain pass where you might be able to get them, but also you might not. So everybody had a different opinion on where the best place to get the ptarmigans was.
Yeah, it felt like the kind of thing where we had a chance of seeing it, but you could put yourself in a better position at a different time of year or a different place to see one. And I found that it's hard not to do that when you're in a location to try to find every lifer, even if it's difficult. So, for example, when we were in California, we really wanted to see Clark's Nutcracker, and we did, but it was super brief and a really tough to access place. And then in Oregon, we were at a place where they would like fly right next to you and land on like the structures, in the parking lot. And it's like we tried so hard to find them in California, and then you put yourself in a better spot, and it's just so much easier.
Hmm.
Where it's kind of to the point where if we're traveling to a place and something's a possibility, but it'd be tough, I'd rather spend more time with the birds that you may have already seen, but the experiences are better. And I think that just kind of happens as you get birding for longer, as you value the experience a little bit more than like seeing a new bird. Like it's always cool to see a new bird, but if I'm gonna see it, I want to have a good experience with it. I don't want it to be like just a fleeting glimpse or where we're making our trip miserable because we're waking up at 5 a.m. to go do this every day and not being able to enjoy it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that actually goes along with the sage grouse that we saw on our, I'll call it day one. It was technically our second day because our first day we just got to the airport in Denver and then drove out to Hayden. So we ended up getting to Hayden really late. Although we did end up doing a little bit of birding on the way. We spotted stuff at the airport, your
It was
classic
a
pigeons and
first
house sparrows.
first full dedicated day.
Yeah, first full dedicated day, the second half of our birding adventure, we went out into the sagebrush sea to look for sage grouse. And we had fleeting glimpses at first. So we were traveling around, not seeing anything. And then I see this bird just kind of walk like a turkey into the sage on the other side of the road. And meanwhile, Derek was out of the truck
I
doing
think I was
something
trying to get
else.
a pronghorn video or something.
Something like that. I was trying to get a pronghorn video, and I tried to call him over, and I didn't even think to get a video of it because I wanted him to see it first. So I was just trying to get his attention. By the time I got his attention, it was gone. It vanished. But we knew it was in the sagebrush, so we kind
They're
of
massive too.
they're
Like
big.
so it's I think believe it's the largest grouse species in the United States, if I'm not mistaken. But they can just vanish in that sagebrush. And if they're not moving, you'd have no idea they were there.
Yeah, so it walks in the sage. We go closer to it, to the spot where it vanished, and we're expecting it to be there just chilling. And then eventually it takes off from way farther away than it was. So it had just slyly moved through the sage without us being able to see where it ended up. And then when it took off and made such a loud noise that it was honestly
It was
scary for a
pretty
second.
close to you. And it was like
It
you
was
just
so
hear
close.
boom, 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 like the wing beats as it takes. And you can see the kind of the like the forks on the tail. They have that distinctive like, you know, line kind of pattern of those back feathers that kind of look like very sharp triangles basically.
Mhm.
And so we all saw it and we're like, well, there it goes. And it went like over the side of a hill too. It's like you're not gonna
You're
find
not
that
gonna
bird.
find
It's
it. Yeah.
gone.
Yeah,
That
and
was
the
kind of your
sagebrush
one
sea
chance.
is called the sagebrush sea for a reason. It was as far as you could visibly look out over the landscape. I was gonna say as you could visibly see, but I didn't want to try to make a pun. But there was so much of it that you could just look for miles and you would see nothing but sagebrush, which is also not the same as the spice sage, although it does have a very pleasant aroma. This is the kind of sage that you could burn if you're doing a ceremony of some sort, not the kind of spice. But it's all over the place there. It creates its own habitats, but nonetheless, very satisfying looks at first of the sage grouse, and you always wonder if that's all you're going to get. Because to me, sage grouse is a pretty tough to find bird. The time we were there, they were not in lekking season, and Jeremiah has leks that he goes to or can take people to do tours to. And I don't want to speak for it, but it feels more like you have almost a guarantee of getting them on the lekking areas if everything goes according to plan. I don't know that you have a guarantee of just finding grouse, although that area seemed good for them, which we would later find out. So you wonder, was my chance now gone to actually get these good looks at sage grouse? We're left with this fleeting glimpse and then no pictures or videos of them. So you kind of are mixed feelings about it. I got that lifer, but now am I going to be unfulfilled with this tick on my eBird checklist because I didn't get the experience I wanted with it?
Yeah, I would totally agree.
But then we kept going, and just a short while later, we ran into a flock of like, what do you think, 20?
Yeah, I think we said like 17, but so basically it happened. We kind of got into some different habitat, which it didn't look as ideal for them because it had more other stuff in it than just like the sage. But I think you were up front with Jeremiah. And you were like, "Oh, we got like a couple on the side of
There
the
was
road."
two crossing the road.
Yeah, and I was in the back, and you guys didn't see that to my right. There was like five or seven right out in the open, and you're like, "Oh, look, we got two around." I'm like, "Guys, we got a whole group over here," and they were super chill. They were actually eating. Looked like some of the plants there, so we got great media of them. And of course, they're not in their like dapper breeding plumage, but still very pretty and almost dinosaur looking, in my opinion. Had a kind of a prehistoric vibe to them, but just these massive birds with these long tails, kind of like almost like a shorter tailed peacock, like the shape of them was
Yeah,
kind
that's
of like
fair.
that. And they just kind of worked their way through, and we got to watch them eat, cross the road, disappear into the sage. And so we had that felt really satisfying. It was like, this is what we came here to get, and we're getting these amazing views. And we were all super happy about that. And then on the way out, we saw even more. So we had gone and turned a corner, and then there were more hanging out there. So I don't know if it's like that all the time, but I mean, I thought we ended up with a fantastic sage grouse experience.
Yeah, I don't know if we just got lucky or if that's something that can routinely happen in that area if you just know where they disperse to after their lucking time is over. But to me, it felt very special. And even Jeremiah said you don't get to see them like that often, where they're just doing their own thing, where they're just eating, chilling out. They didn't seem stressed out in the slightest. They just walked through and then crossed the road eventually and then went up a ridge and vanished like they are so good at. So it was a really fulfilling experience, whereas the first one we had wasn't. And it's funny how that second dose of the sage grouse was what we needed to feel fulfilled.
Yeah, and it wasn't only that then. We had a great look at a golden eagle perched up on a power line. And actually, we were so close you could see that it only had one eye, which I'm sure that's I would love to know the story behind that, but Golden Eagle gave us amazing views. And earlier in the day, we had a good experience with pinion jays too. We had a massive flock of pinion jays we were following. So we kind of had a really good first day experience in Colorado and kind of the more open country area, which felt very authentic. And also like sheep herders out there that Jeremiah was telling us about the history of the sheep herders in the area and just sage as far as you can see and just a really cool kind of remote. It felt like a very authentic Colorado day. Like it did not feel touristy whatsoever. It's like this is the authentic, like this is what's going on in the northwest part of Colorado every day. Like this is the experience is happening and you just kind of walk in and you get to watch it for a day and then, continue on. It wasn't
Mhm.
contrived whatsoever.
The town we were in too, it felt like everybody knew each other. So they were getting in long conversations. There was a really cool coffee shop there that we went to. What was it called? Like the
Wild Goose
Wild Goose?
Cafe, I
Yeah,
believe.
the Wild
Got to
Goose
get the Nutty
something.
Goose if you go there.
There was a coffee there called the Nutty Goose. But we were just sitting at the coffee shop and people were coming into the coffee shop. There were people working on some other stuff around. And you would just see people get in these conversations where it seemed like they knew each other for years.
It's like, how's your niece doing?
Yeah, it was that kind of town. And it felt like a town that had real ranchers, or an area in general that had real ranchers, kind of real cowboys. And there's probably areas that are more rugged and even more like that, but this didn't seem like the touristy part of Colorado that people go. And I do want to know too, Colorado is just interesting in general because it has the mountain range that goes through the state, that has the western mountain range part of the state past the mountains and then the eastern part, and you get different stuff on both sides. So they do get a lot of eastern birds too on the eastern sides in the mountains, and then a lot of those western birds on the western, and then mountain species in general in the mountains. So it's a good mix of birds.
Yeah, definitely. It cut out a little bit, but I think people get the idea.
They'll get the gist of what I was saying.
I think so. Yeah, apologize for the audio. I don't know why it's cutting out today, but you get the gist. Anything else about day one? There was also a bald eagle nest we got to see. Went to a pizza
Um,
place.
yeah, early on we just did some stuff around town too. So we got to see stuff by the Yampa River. So bullocks,
Bobolinks,
oriole, yeah, bobolinks,
sandhill cranes.
magpies, a lot of stuff that
Jeremiah
lives in the
loves
water.
sandhill cranes.
He does. He kept getting really jazzed up about the sandhill cranes. And where we live, we have sandhill cranes that you can just drive by every day, so we're pretty used to them. But he was pumped about the cranes.
We did see on one of the days a sandhill crane try to eat a mourning dove,
That was a
which was
little dark.
interesting. Yeah. Interesting behavior to observe, but yeah, definitely kind of dark.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you haven't watched those three videos that we've been talking about, the Pawnee Grassland video, Rocky Mountain National Park, and then Day One Colorado, I think you'll really enjoy seeing the experiences there. And I'm excited to work on the rest of the days from the Colorado stuff. It was a really, really nice experience. I'm glad we got to go over and hang out with Jeremiah and see some awesome birds.
Yeah, there was a lot more left that we still have to get through too. So there were some more interesting birds that we had in the coming days. More grouse. We're trying to
More
tab
grouse.
Jeremiah as the grouse guy.
The grouse guy. Yeah. Well, cool. Anything else from day one that you want people to know about or,
I think
the
that
other
was
Colorado
that was
adventures?
mostly it from day one. Just if you want to see the videos, go check them out. You'll get a feeling like you were there with us. We go from the airport to Hayden to all of our adventures the next day.
Yeah, definitely. And I want to thank Brome for sponsoring this video. Make sure to check out their squirrel-proof products and other stuff that they have on their website. Uh, I will put a link in the description. I believe it is just bromebirdcare.com is where you can go check it out. They also have a pole system where you can put your squirrel proof stuff on. They have accessories, a lot of cool stuff over from Brome, so make sure to check that out. And let us know what you think of the Colorado stuff if you watched it. And if you haven't, make sure to go check it out. And thanks to everyone for watching and listening to this episode of the Badgerland Birding Podcast.